Good morning, a very well welcome everyone to our Oracle WTL briefing titled SPARC Solaris Workload Transformation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Craig Andrews. I'm the Business Development Director here at WTL and I have the pleasure of being your host for this morning's panel session. But before we just start, a little bit of housekeeping. You'll all find that you're muted for the duration of this webinar. Please don't take it personally. However, this webinar is being recorded and be made available to you after the event. In an effort to make this event as valuable as possible for everyone, we welcome all your questions. So if you don't mind, if you can please pop them into the chat box down the side, then at the end we can go through as many of those questions as possible. So why are we here today? Let me share with you. Our objective today is to share with you some first-hand examples and experiences of the Solaris workload transformation options available for existing SPARC Solaris users. So the aim is really simple, is for you to make the most informed decisions regarding the creation of your very own SPARC Solaris workload strategy. We will share with you why certain customers of ours selected their specific option and the associated benefits delivered back to their respective businesses. However, please note this event is not meant to be a technical deep dive, but it's positioned more as an overview of possible options for consideration. We know that each customer is unique, and we gladly have a one-on-one basis so that we can help you define your specific mid to long-term strategy. So to deliver all of this, I'm really pleased to be able to bring to you a vastly experienced and knowledgeable panel of SPARC Solaris experts. They may not like me sharing this, but collectively, these guys have nearly 100 years of SPARC Solaris expertise. So we should all be in very safe hands. So who are our panel? So first we've got Hans-Jörg Klemetsky from Oracle. Hans is the EMEA Business Development Director and is responsible for private cloud at appliance, private cloud at customer, and SPARC. So Hans will be sharing with us the very latest on SPARC Solaris. Secondly, we have Nick Matthews. Nick is our sales director at WTL, has been at WTL for 30 years and is responsible for driving SPARC Solaris customer engagement and success. Nick will be sharing with us customer workload transformation examples, the transformation routes selected, and what benefits were actually derived back to their respective businesses. Last but certainly not least, we have Andy Payne. Andy is our technical director at WTL, has been at WTL for 32 years, and is responsible for all senior consultants and the overall project and service delivery at WTL. Andy will be sharing with us some of the finer technical details and considerations required when selecting the specific routes for your workload transformation. So, what will we be covering today? To start off, I'll give you a very brief snapshot of WTL, so what we've been doing for the past 32 years. We'll then be handing over to Hans to get the very latest on SPARC and Solaris. You'll then come back to me and I'll share with you our own experiences and that of our customers on exactly what are the drivers and goals for workload transformation. Then when we know what the business drivers are for workload transformation, the question really is, well, what options do I have for my Solaris workloads? What choice of platforms do I have so I can actually meet those business needs? So to do that, we'll be going through thoughts and considerations of each of those available options. We'll then cover off a little bit on how WTL can actually help you. So the areas of expertise and services that we offer, so that you can obtain the most secure, reliable, efficient platform for your applications, both now and in the future. Finally, we'll cover off any questions that have been sent throughout the event. And our aim is really to cover as many areas, options and considerations for you so that you can make the best informed decision on your SPARC Solaris workload transformation strategy. So the Oracle Solaris guys. So here we have myself, Andy and Nick, just so that you know who is who. Nick is the only one capable of growing a full beard. Andy is the intelligent one with the glasses, and I'm the last one, I suppose, on this Crime Watch Most Wanted poster. As previously mentioned, for the past 32 years, and alongside our MD, Colin Higgins, we have headed up Team WTL, a specialist provider of solutions and managed services specifically focused around Solaris and Linux environments, all delivered from and in the UK. And this is an important note here, please. We do not offshore resource ever. Okay, so as you can imagine, over those 32 years, we've accumulated a large and loyal customer base that includes both public and private sector organizations, from local authorities, councils, other government bodies, to large multi-million-dollar companies in the financial, logistic, and manufacturing sectors. So without further ado, let me pass you over to Hans, who will show you exactly why SPARC Solaris is still very much alive and kicking. So over to you, Hans.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here, and great to see people actually coming on to this session. So without going into this one, which we usually really need to show, one of the questions that I would like to answer is like, so what about SPARC Solaris? Is it, quote, alive, quote end, which I got the question from one of the customers. And it definitely is. The Oracle SPARC Solaris systems are really in use, trusted by many people worldwide. And they are those where we hear a lot about. These are the systems that we can have in our data center and giving us a good sleep at the night, because they are running, they are scalable, they are secure, and thus we are trusting them with our mission critical enterprise applications. They are a complete solution, and they are really strongly layered in terms of the security, because that's what we do when we have the design for our not only chips, but the overall systems. And they are naturally having unique capabilities because they are co-engineered. And we were talking earlier on about how long we were with the company. Well, I joined back in '92 with Sun Microsystems. So I've seen the transition when we were joining with Oracle, and that really made a difference in terms of the systems that you have today. Co-engineered really in the true sense, and provides you as our customers with a great TCO, with a great effective way of doing databases and applications, and doing this really in a very fantastic way. So what was the journey essentially? And some people are asking, so was there really interest from Oracle? And let me put the elephant out, which is in the room. Yes, Oracle really has provided a lot of development efforts and innovation into SPARC. And still today, after 3 years, the M8 is showing that, because when we introduced 2018, we were ahead of all the competition in that area, and we still are. It is still the #1 in terms of doing what it should be doing, which is providing an enterprise scalable, secure environment for running and hosting applications. So a very useful way of doing that. And are we continuing to invest really in on-premise infrastructure? Because you hear a lot of us talking about cloud. Yes, definitely we continue to invest in on-premise infrastructure technology. It is done in all the areas that we are doing in terms of on-premise, but also specifically on SPARC. We want to ensure that you, our customers, are getting the most efficient, scalable, and secure system. And we're doing that by continuing into the systems environment. As you know, our computers, as every computer, is not just comprised by the processor. It is the whole system environment. Looking at the board, looking at all the other technical elements that are in there. And since we introduced the systems back in 2018, which are based, for example, on the M8 series, we've continuously added new elements and replaced elements in there. And we continue to have people who do that. So we had a session where we were asked, is this something where you don't have a developer anymore? No, we do still have developers, for sure, because they are making sure that the systems continue to stay updated, be it on the flash accelerator area, as you see on the screen, or be it in Ethernet areas, whatever is necessary to make sure that the systems are really running in an effective way. And the same goes true for Solaris. We continue to invest in Solaris as well. I'll talk about this in a minute, but we don't stop here. We continue to have it, and we provide this, as you've seen, as does, for example, also our, so to speak, sister company, Fujitsu, when it talks about having an updated version of their Spark service. So you have two big companies continuing to be committed to Spark and continuing to go with it. Very good environment for you. And we have it really in a way that you can choose from the different areas. And this is where WTL really shows off in terms of giving you the hands, giving you actually the information and helping you in terms of making sure you have the right service, the right systems in there for your applications to make the most use of that. So looking a little bit ahead from the systems part, let me talk about Solaris. Continues to be delivered, and as I said, we continue to deliver new functionality. And we do this, by the way, for example, in having customers joining us in a regular fashion, once per year at least, where they are telling us how they are using the systems, and our engineering leadership team is then looking at it and jointly with the customers deciding where shall we invest, where shall we bring new functionality in Solaris. And doing this in a very effective way for you means also we continue, and this is a statement that you hopefully have heard before, but I would like to reiterate, we continue to support the Solaris version up to 2034. That is official, that is out, that is documented. And that is giving you the safe sleep in the night in addition to the systems area. So all of that one in there. And not only do we do this for the 11.4, we also do it for the Solaris 10 investments that you have done potentially and where you are still working on. So we have extended support now through January 2024, and we have the possibilities for migrating the workloads, but that is, again, where WTL will help you in making the right decision and the optimal decision to do that. So from that perspective, I would say the future of Spark is really here now. And actually that, from my point of view, is a really interesting story to look into. So let me pass this back to Craig.
That's great, Hans. Thanks very much for that overview there of Spark and Solaris. I'm sure we're going to get a number of questions out of the attendees. So we learned a little bit there as to Spark and Solaris and the at least longevity through to 2034, which is great. But what are the drivers and goals for workload transformation? So here we have just a few of the drivers and goals. This is far from an exhaustive list, but they certainly are some of the most common that we encounter. So firstly, optimize workload diversity to better meet your current and future business needs. Bit of a mouthful, I suppose, but for this, for our clients, this is all about business agility, retaining a competitive advantage, and really underpinning the overall business strategy. Okay, and then secondly, we've got simplified daily operations. Well, we're all seeing that organizations are increasingly under pressure to do more with less, thus creating real complexity at times within their IT estate. So I suppose the ongoing challenge is to remain as efficient as possible with their procedures and workflows. Okay, next we have improve overall efficiency, security and reliability. I suppose I've really just, that dovetails and overlaps with what I've just said about remaining as efficient as possible. So reduce operational costs. We see that companies are looking to really streamline and automate their business functions as much as possible to help really drive down these operational costs. Support, well, this is by far the one that we come across most often. So this is all about customer concerns and questions regarding support, security and reliability of legacy applications on legacy platforms with legacy operating systems. So that really is the support aspect. So we've just a few of the drivers and goals for workload transformation. So what I'll do is I'll now pass over to Nick. Nick will go through some of the transformation options available today for SPARC Solaris users. So over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Hans. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. So what are the options for SPARC Solaris users? So speaking with our customers and having an understanding of what's happening within the IT marketplace, we believe there are really three credible options to consider. One, remain on SPARC Solaris on-prem through tech refresh. Secondly, migrate those workloads to Oracle Linux on x86 based technology, or migrate those workloads to the cloud. Now, the conversation for us always starts with the workload. So workload is a word that you're going to hear an awful lot of in the next 20 minutes or so. So let's look at the first option, remain on SPARC Solaris on-prem, tech refresh. Is this really an option? Yes, we've heard from Hans with regards the longevity of Solaris and also the M8 chip with regards its position against its competitors, whether that be Intel or AMD. We have confirmation from Oracle that they will be supporting Solaris until at least 2034. So where are we? 13 years away. Is that long enough for 2, maybe 3 tech refreshes? Who knows? But why not? Why not benefit from the performance that the M8 chip delivers, the on-chip acceleration, the driving efficiencies with regards to your licensing? Oracle runs better on Oracle, right? We're really looking through consolidation. We're looking at reducing your total cost of ownership. What I'll do now, if I may, I'll summarize as best I can, as quickly as I can, a real life example of why one of our customers have chosen to continue their investment through tech refresh on SPARC Solaris. So this particular customer provides their application or service via a private cloud, a managed platform, if you will, that runs on SPARC Solaris. Now, we held a technical workshop with our customer, and we considered everything. It really was a blank sheet of paper. We considered x86, we considered Linux, we considered engineered systems such as Exa, but the answer that we came back to was SPARC. Why? Okay, so their estate was mainly made up of T52 servers, great servers, like me getting a little old now. So the initial, let's call it program, was to replace those servers with S72s, newer servers, way cheaper to support and maintain with support costs and so forth. We did some real life performance benchmarking and testing, and we found that the T8 II with the M8 chip outperformed the S7 II by over 3.5 times. Okay, now even conservatively looking at, to say it's outperformed them by 3 times, please imagine, you know, the savings of consolidation this customer is recognizing, you know, in footprint, in power, cooling, management, but also license costs. You know, we're looking at standard edition 2 processor license listing at £14,000, right? Enterprise edition, £37,500. So these are really, really impressive savings. But not only that, they're running on the most reliable, scalable platform to deliver their services to their customers. So in this particular scenario, our customer have super in-house skills to manage their, not just their Oracle database, but also their Solaris estate. However, you know, in more recent times, that isn't the case. You know, the more recent conversations that we're having with customers is, yes, you know, we'd love to refresh on Spark. You know, we love it. It doesn't break. It just runs forever. But we don't have those skills anymore. Our sysadmins have retired. They've de-skilled for whatever reason. Now, that's an area where we can absolutely help you. And Andy will be chatting through some of our services later, including our managed service. So Andy, can I get your thoughts on this, on why, you know, SPARC Solaris should be considered as a very, very viable option?
Yeah. So thanks for that, Nick. I think the key points for me is licensing optimization for Oracle. We do see the great advantages that Solaris and Spark gives us. We have zones, we have LDOMs, all great technologies delivering hard partitioning to keep those licenses, costs and optimizations down. So we see those best options in the Solaris Spark ecosystem. But the other things that we see customers challenged with is supporting those legacy systems. We still have customers today that still have Solaris 8, 9, and Solaris 10 environments. I do have some Solaris 2.6, but that's a different challenge completely with those kind of customers. But those, you know, those environments are still able to be supported on current up-to-date hardware, be it on Fujitsu and on the Spark environments. So we can see that legacy support. People are driven to, in this day and age, keeping things on support for security, availability, and running old hardware is just not applicable to those kind of ideals. And we need to run on the latest operating systems where possible. So we can run Solaris 11.4, but still have branded zones such as Solaris 10. We can still run Solaris 10 on straight on the box on Fujitsu servers. Yes, Solaris 10 is still going to be in extended support until 2024. So there's still ability to have support and patches available around those. But yes, the future's still there, and our customers are still making those, have those critical applications today that still need to be supported tomorrow. And they still need to do sticking head in the sand and just avoiding it is not an option in this one. They have to do something, and continuing that tech refresh on Spark and Solaris is that easy option to keep going, and you know, have that confidence still to go for the next well, it's at least 2034, but in the very short term still have that confidence of security patches and availability for them and their systems.
Super. Thanks, Andy. So I'm conscious that we spent quite a bit of time on this topic, but I feel it's really important because I feel that you know, our SPARC Solaris customers need to know that Spark is still alive, that Solaris is still alive, and it most definitely is a viable option. Before we move on, what I'd like to say is, you know, there's a saying of kicking it down the road, okay, and that saying is also generally a negative. So I'm just kicking it down the road. However, I believe in migrating off SPARC Solaris. Actually kicking that down the road is a positive thing. Stay on SPARC Solaris. And why? Well, why not benefit from the consolidation ratios, the license efficiencies, the availability, the scalability of Spark now for the next, what, 3, 4, 5, 6 years? The M chip was released around 3 years ago, by far the quickest, right? It's still the quickest today, and it's probably still going to be the quickest and most efficient technology to run your workloads, and will be for some quite considerable time. So yes, why not tech refresh on Spark and push that migration down the road, when, you know, the other chips, the Intels, the AMDs, the whatever, have actually kind of caught up. Therefore, it's not going to cost you extra money to migrate to an x86 platform, in licensing, in cost of ownership, and all those things. So yeah, let me leave you with that, if I may, and what we'll do is we'll move on. Okay, so another option for our customers is to migrate their workloads to Linux, to Oracle Linux on x86 technology. Why are our customers doing this? Why are people considering this? I generally find that there are two scenarios in this case. One, the business perceives maybe that the Spark chip as proprietary, maybe. Secondly, the business or organization want to accelerate their journey to the cloud. Now, I would suggest that that any journey to the cloud, we do it in a stepped approach, and migrating onto x86 and Linux, Oracle Linux, is the natural choice, especially if those workloads are Oracle applications or database. You know, the Oracle Linux, you'll see it there. It's the OS designed for hybrid cloud. Okay, so yes, migrate your workloads on-prem, on Oracle Linux, on x86. That then gives you a much more de-risked approach to then, should you wish, moving those workloads to the cloud. But not only moving those workloads to the cloud, being able to move them back again quite simply. Okay, and before I hand over to Andy, I do need to make everyone aware, you know, and Hans touched on it earlier, Oracle have a super portfolio of on-prem technology from EXA or Cloud Customer, through ODA, Oracle Database Appliance, the PCA, and let's not forget the traditional system, which is absolutely key for a lot of people out there who have small to medium-sized workloads. So, Andy, give us a little bit more information on you know, why people are looking at this option, why it should be, I believe, considered as a de-risked option to look at.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. So yes, you know, customers who have made that decision to move away from Spark, Linux is the obvious choice. We don't see people particularly going for Windows-based solutions. So Linux does seem that choice, and Oracle Linux seems the most obvious choice to run an Oracle database. The Oracle Linux has been around for a long time. They famously is unbreakable, but they have some real core advantages over the other Linux distributions, such as Red Hat. So the key enterprise kernel, which is customized and tuned to support the latest hardware, not trying to support the legacy chips. So it's far more efficient, and higher rev kernels supporting in Oracle Linux 7 and 8. We also have the greats of zero downtime with K-Splice. We have the visualization in terms with KVM and overt based. So I think that's critical as well, using that technology, which is the only technology supported under Linux today by Oracle to limit their license applications with KVM. So again, if you wanted to run enterprise databases using overt and Oracle KVM, is the only way to bring those licenses capability down on per core basis and using pinning and affinity. So that's a key feature of using Oracle Linux for that, to deliver that capability. So overall, we see the Linux seems to be the most obvious. They're Oracle applications and technologies which you've talked about, EXA, database appliances, they're all fundamentally Oracle Linux underneath, and the primary development environment for Oracle databases is Oracle Linux. So we're seeing that whole Oracle red stack, as it used to be called. So we've got the hardware, which is Oracle, we've got Oracle Linux, we've got Oracle database and applications. You know, one throat to choke is the simple an old saying, but it's a nice one, with all that technology stacks basically seems together. We like to think that's always the case, but there's always a challenge. But the support is there for that one person one organization to take ownership of all that. So it's not passing on between different vendors if there are any particular support issues. So we see it great. And Oracle Linux is also free. You know, those free Yum repositories is available for free, but you do have that premium support that comes with hardware, and you know it is available there, and it gives you the extra advantages to be taken. So, and you get the case bias with those kind of technologies as well. So I think Oracle Linux is the natural partner to Solaris in the future for those type of solutions and customers. And with moving customers today to Oracle Linux, that's real delivering solutions for our customers now.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, so last but not least, let's have a quick chat through the third alternative of migrating workloads to the cloud. So generally we see two types of let's call it workload or scenario. Firstly, is the application or the service available as software as a service, or indeed platform as a service, whether that be through Oracle or another software provider. If it is, then why wouldn't you look at that service? Who better to run and manage those applications than the application owners themselves? So yeah, big thumbs up for that, and why wouldn't you? The second workload or scenario that we come across is the lift and shift. So taking a workload and moving that to the cloud with regards to infrastructure as a service. Now, in each scenario, I would suggest that, and we recommend that our customers absolutely consider costs, the initial costs to migration to the cloud, and their exit strategy. Eyes wide open stuff. If that all adds up, then absolutely, it absolutely makes sense to move those workloads to the cloud. And in both scenarios, please consider the whole environment. Are there dependencies within the network of different workloads? Again, that's something that we can help you with. So which cloud? Well, for Oracle-based workloads, applications and database, absolutely suggest Oracle Cloud Infrastructure or OCI, now in its second generation, and offers some great features such as autonomous database and so forth. So on that note, let me hand you over to Andy to get his thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for Nick. Go back to that slide, thank you. So go back to the SaaS environments. We see applications today. I got customers, a lot of customers running Oracle EBS applications that has, particular life cycle things, and we're seeing great success then moving those applications to Fusion, Oracle Fusion within the cloud. Those projects are ongoing. They've got customers all in all different phases of that particular projects, and that seems a very natural moving those traditional Oracle EBS workloads running on Oracle Database, WebLogic, running on Spark, moving those into the cloud and SaaS. Those seems to be a very much, I'm going to almost say, a no-brainer type solutions. Yes, it's a different application, but if you're moving off EBS, it's a different application anyway. So naturally moving that onto a cloud solution just makes sense for a lot of our customers, and been great success for Oracle in doing that. I think where the challenges I've seen with most of our customers is where they've adopted a lift and shift approach into cloud, which is almost replicate what they do on-prem and trying to do that and emulate it exactly doing the same thing in cloud. I think those projects have had limited success or hasn't realized the advantages of the whole cloud. And some of those projects have had to kind of wind back and come back onto on-prem and develop to more of a hybrid cloud solution for those kind of customers. I think their challenges is not looking at the cloud options and taking the advantage of some of the services within the cloud and using those optimizations, such as Oracle databases, the DBCS services, autonomous database. We get Oracle Autonomous Linux that helps self-patching, and we have some wonderful technologies there. But it's the Oracle cloud and cloud hyperscalers. There's so many different options and configurations. It is a complicated navigational just to consider, and they're changing daily, new features and capabilities within all these hyperscaler cloud environments. But I think the first kind of real thing is to really look at your application workloads. Don't automatically assume a lift and shift. IaaS is not always the way. It is part of the solution. The SaaS and PaaS parts are the really, I think, where you're going to generate the most reward from going into those environments. And people going for, you know, in this COVID era, they're going for, there seems to be a greater migration from off-prem into the cloud because the staff aren't in the offices, the premises aren't really a thing anymore. We're seeing customers, you know, I'm in the office today, but I can tell you now for the last 14 months, I've been working from home as others people have. So, and people have been doing those within environments. We're seeing more adoption going into the cloud, but lift and shift is not the easy, it might be an easy option, but I don't think it's the final option. So that's my thoughts on that.
Great, thanks, Andy. So we've covered those three topics. Well, we've only done it very briefly. I'm conscious of that. And as Craig mentioned at the top there, we're keen to speak with you. We're keen to understand how we can help. Before we step through to any questions, which I hope there's loads, I did mention earlier, Andy, can you talk us through you know, how we are helping our customers, how we can help new customers with regards our managed services, our consultancy services? Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. MSP, this is our remote system administration. Nick, you referred to earlier that there seems to be a Solaris drain in terms of resources within our customers. We're all getting old. Solaris has been around for a long time. I started with Sun OS 3, so on Sun 3 systems, so back in the day. We're all getting old. We're still around. I'm still hopefully young enough to support my customers for the next 10, 15 years. But we do see that challenges with a lot of our customers' environments. So WTL over the last 10 years have grown our MSPs, providing Solaris system administration to our on-prem customers, and also in the cloud, providing environments supporting Linux and things. So that's a true 24/7, operated by guys in the UK. These are all my guys. They're all employees. They're not contractors. I've been here for 32 years. The next guy down from he's 30 years. The other one's 28 years. You know, the junior is probably 3 years in. So that's the kind of longevity we have in these environments, and support and that continuation for our customers. I've got customers over 20 years delivering Solaris solutions too, and I'm still supporting them today. And they're the same people, we're the same people, and that's a great relationship we have with those. And we can build that with lots of our customers. So we're very boutique in our style with our MSP, and we can work with most environments. So that's the MSP. So you know, not everyone wants a managed service. People want assistance to move and do that transformation. So again, my guys are Solaris consultants. We go on site, we talk to you about those migrations and how to get from A to B, and we can support Solaris and Linux as part of that migration services. And lastly, as Oracle license optimization. We also want to when we architect systems, we're always very, very mindful of the Oracle licenses obligations from our customer. So we make sure we right size it, we make sure hard partitions is capable, and you are aware of what your obligations are as a license. So when that license auditing comes onto your door, you have a nice smiling face because you're nice and comfortable that everything is happily licensed and you're comfortable with that audit's going to happen safely. So yeah, that's briefly what our services can think, but just a real fundamental takeaway, we're Solaris guys, we're here in the UK, they're all employees of WTL, and I think that's really a testament to our dedication to the Solaris and the Linux environments for our customers. So I think that's the only questions. I'm going to ask Graham to shout any questions that we have from the panel. Appreciate we've been waffling on and not heard from anyone, so hopefully we've got some questions to answer.
So everyone's been very shy today. We haven't got any questions at the moment that have come in. So if you do have any questions, if you put them into the questions box or the chat facility. We've just got one question coming from Marcel. What are your experiences Oracle Ops Center? Experiences with Oracle's Ops Center.
I've had quite a few experiences with Oracle Ops Center. So it's a different capability. So it depends on how you want to use Ops Center. So there's different parts: deployment and monitoring. I've got customers that only use it just for the monitoring, and they use it quite well. So they manage thousands of instances within their environments, delivering that monitoring, they're able to look at the CPU alerts when services fail. Yes, that's great. I think that works well if you haven't got any other monitoring. I do see challenges with our customers when they've used it as a deployment tool, deploying for Solaris patches or operating systems. I think those projects haven't gone as well, maybe educational, but Ops Center as well, it needs to be looked after and maintained. And I think people assume that it's because it's a GUI, everything's a right click and will just work. We're in Unix environments, we know that doesn't always happen, and things change, and you do sometimes need to get under the covers. So Ops Center has its advantages, but also sometimes has its complications. So I'm a little bit on the fence if I like it or not, and that's a personal opinion.
Oh, that's great, Andy. Nick, have you got anything to add to that?
On Ops Center?
Yeah.
No, I think Andy's our man on that one. Great.
Yeah, I've got the t-shirts for Ops Center deployments. I've done a few.
Sorry to
Andy,
throw you
if you don't mind, I've got a question there. So let's take this as a scenario, okay? I'm an existing user. I've got an aging and a legacy SPARC Solaris estate, some very old servers, say some N4000s, some T1000s, running older versions of Solaris, 8, 9, 10. But what can I actually do? Because they're business critical and I still need them, what can I actually do to make these environments as secure as possible, because they are still absolutely critical to my business? So
legacy is always a challenge. There is support available for, as we talked, for Solaris 10. It's still in extended support. Solaris 11.3 is still in extended support. Oracle 8 and 9 is a challenge. There are sustained support models for those from Oracle, but you're not expected to get patches and lifecycle on that. So, but moving to hardware, first of all, there's a hardware layer. If you're running on old, I don't think customers are running on E450s or V880s or the old enterprise systems these days, but there might be a few still there. But moving to the latest hardware, be it on Fujitsu, which I think still has a great place for some of the legacy Java application support, and Solaris 10, if that needs to be natively installed and not within a branded zone. Fujitsu still has some great support capability for Solaris 10 there. But moving to the new hardware and trying to leverage what the capabilities of Solaris 11.4 and branded zones would be the first goal to aim at. So at least the underlying hardware is up to date. The base operating system, be it Solaris, is also supported and has a minimal risk from if you're on the latest versions of Solaris. And then it's within the zones and what's capable in Solaris 10 and those extended patches available today. So that would be the main go there. And because you've naturally gone to new hardware, that consolidation ratio kicks into play. So when you're running lots of different physical boxes, we like to consolidate that. You know, zones is a great technology, LDOMs, zones within LDOMs. We can do all these kind of technologies to get the maximum out of the hardware and still be mindful of your licensing. I'm always mindful of licensing.
Thanks, Andy.
Craig, can I just add a few words on that as well? So with regards support, Andy's talked through you know what the options are with regards Solaris. Just touching on the hardware, whilst Oracle will support you know older machines, M4000s, M5000s, and so forth, and earlier than that. Our customers need to be aware of maybe some milestones that that do change. So, and you know, with regards hardware support, I'll try and summarize this as best I can. So, from 5 years from when you receive your new server, up to 5 years, you will see an annual increase of 4% per year in your maintenance costs. When it hits 5 years, I call it legacy. It turns into legacy, which is +4, +15% per year. Okay. Now there is one more milestone that that we need to make you aware of, and that's 5 years from the equipment last ship date. Okay. So when the last server goes out the door, 5 years after that, the SLA with regards Oracle support does change, and there is a caveat in there that you know it's subject to those parts being available. Okay, so there's just a few milestones that whilst Oracle, yes, they will support your servers, please be aware of those milestones along the way.
And maybe to chip in from my side also here, completely agree to what just has been said on both parts, and Nick, on your part, what we're calling it is like best efforts in terms of the spare parts, because it's natural. I mean, we're talking about now systems which are older than some of the iterations that you have with the new chips, and we're not talking about the processor. We're talking about elements which are, for example, on an I/O board or whatever. So while we do that, there is a strong recommendation from our side to work with, for example, WTL, in order to see how you can migrate those workloads onto the newer systems, looking into the possibilities that I know that you guys are offering in terms of can we take this application onto a newer version of Solaris and having the support from WTL on those areas in order to make this as efficient as possible for the customer side. So very much, I think, a view on specifically these older systems to look at and really double check on what is the best way forward, which is what you're offering as a service very nicely.
Thank you. Graham, any more questions?
We've now got one more question from Alan. So thank you for the question there. So what is the license implications of running Oracle Linux as a VM in VMware?
Oh, huge. So VMware is not a technology supported within from a hard partitioning. So there's lots of complications around that technology. So it's perceived typically seeing what's vCenter is there. The real answer is engage with Oracle licensing to have those questions up front. So if you want to run Oracle database on VMware, have that open conversation with Oracle and with us before, and explain the environment. What we don't want is suddenly an Oracle database creeping to a VMware environment, and then an auditor to come along and perceive that there. That's the worst case scenario, because they'll just stick to the particular letter of the law. If you go from the other angle, that yes, I want to run an Oracle database, I want to run it on VMware for these particular reasons, it is supported, it is capable. There's full support for Oracle database on VMware. The licensing hard partitioning doesn't apply in the VMware environments. So, you know, potentially limiting that limitations is more of a challenge. but we got to engage with Oracle before you do it, and there's commercial conversations that you can have to try and make that more palatable.
And that is a joint effort that we're doing there together with you, W2L, for the customers. There are other possibilities if customers are saying, I want to go, for example, on a more virtualized environment. I want to move into the area of x86, and I would also recommend to look into the possibilities that we have, for example, with a private cloud appliance, in contrast to VMware. Depending on what you want to do and what your goal is with the application. It all goes back to the service that WTL is delivering in terms of the trusted advisor, in this case, to understand the architecture, to understand the needs that you have as a customer in terms of running the application ongoingly, keeping it up 24/7. What happens if, for example, you need to expand further in terms of compute nodes, where we have systems like the PCA, we can do this without any kind of interruption. So just strengthening the point, Andy, that you made, like talk to WTL, will jointly support in terms of the best decision that can be done here.
Yeah.
Have we got any more, Graham?
That's all the questions that we've got so far. So if there are any other questions you've got, then obviously we'll be sending out a recording of the webinar and everything else like that. You can, contact details will be in that if you have any other questions.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone. Well, that's it for our panel session this morning. I'd like to thank our expert panel of guests here, Hans, Nick, and Andy. Thank you very much for imparting your knowledge, your wisdom, and your experience, so that SPARC Solaris customers know exactly what options they have, and especially for them to know that they're certainly not alone on their journey. We're here to help. I'd like to thank everyone who's attended this morning for being with us and giving up your time. It's really appreciated very much. I do hope you found it both useful and informative, and sort of saying that, I do hope that we've managed to meet our objective this morning for you, and that was we've given you enough thoughts, considerations and options so that you can make the most informed decisions regarding the creation of your very own SPARC Solaris workload strategy. So as you can see, we strongly believe that doing nothing is not an option. So if you'd like to gain any help, guidance, assistance, then we're certainly here to help. We know that every organization out there is unique. So one-to-one engagement is vital to define a sort of mid to long-term strategy for your specific workloads. So feel free to reach out to us. You can call us. It's not up there, but the main office number is 0121 486 1234, or connect with Nick, Andy, or myself on LinkedIn. The details you can see there on the screen. It'll be great to hear from you. So that just leaves me to say that we believe SPARC and Solaris is still very much alive and kicking. Thank you for your time. We really do hope to speak to you again soon, and have a great day. Thank you.
No, thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.